Hi, this is Innate and Non-Specific Host Defenses, Chapter 17. All right, so this is our overview of the immune system. We have a first line of defense, second line of defense, and third line. Our innate immunity, which is what people are born with. These are, everybody has the same innate immunity, all humans. We all born with our barriers. So we have skin, we have mucous membranes, we have secretions, we have our normal microbiota. And then we have our second line of defense. So this first line is going to be barriers. Let's keep the microbes out. Let's trap them in mucus, move them out. Second line of defense is going to be once they get into your body, how can we take care of them? So we have our white blood cells that are phagocytic. We're going to have inflammation as a way to get rid of bacteria or a way to sort of recruit white blood cells to an infected site. We have fever, and we also have antimicrobial substances in our body. Our third line of defense is going to be once the pathogen has entered into our body, our T cells and B cells, which is part of our a specific or adaptive immunity, will take hold. So this is in a different chapter. So we're going to go through these two. The physical barriers of skin. So skin is the best barrier we have against microbes. It has three layers. We have the epidermis, the dermis, and then the hypodermis. Actually, this is anatomically wrong. I'm going to just fix this because I'm also an anatomy teacher. The hypodermis is not actually considered skin. But anyways, the epidermis is a really good barrier because let's take a look at it. It's dead. First of all the skin cells are dead, so they're not going to be permeable or allow microbes to enter them. And they are also continually shed, so they're going to come off your body. So if a bacteria or fungus landed on that, it will eventually come off your body with your skin. And we can see that this is what your dry, keratinized skin, the epidermis, looks like. There will be resident flora, right? There's going to always be normal flora on the skin. However, the epidermis is protective because of the shedding. Keratin is a very tough protein that is going to be what is filled. These skin cells are now flattened and filled with keratin. Very tough protein. It's salty because of our sweat. It's a dry place. It is a cool place in terms of the rest of our body, right? We have the skin is going to be next to the air. And then it is a little acidic due to the sebum that we produce. So the sebum is our own oil glands, the sebaceous glands, and they produce an oil, but oils are slightly acidic because they are made from fatty acids. And then normal flora, which also produces acids. So we have an acidic environment on skin, and bacteria or microbes in general like to grow in mesophilic, right, and moist environments. So dry and cool is not the best growth circumstances for mesophiles. Here is just a picture of the sebaceous gland. So here's our oil gland, and it makes sebum. Sebum is also considered, it can be a food source for microbes. So not only is it something that protects our skin and lubricates our skin and is acidic, however, microbes have adapted to eat it, right, to break it down, but then they produce something called oleic acid that is going to be also set up an acidic environment that inhibits pathogens from taking hold, right? Our microbiome on our skin is going to protect from invaders by creating that acid. So there's two words here, endogenous and exogenous produced mediators. So endogenous is something that your body makes. Exogenous is something that's coming from outside your body. So the bacteria is making oleic acid. That is exogenous production. Here is the dermis. So once the bacteria, so you can see this really top thick epidermis, which is all those layers of dead skin cells. If they penetrate that, then they get to this epidermis where we do have living cells. In the epidermis, we have our sweat glands. We have chemicals called dermacidins and lysozyme. Excuse me. There is the flushing action of the sweat glands that we have, and then we also have those sebaceous glands that set up the oil that's acidic. excuse me, the mucociliary escalator. So this is our mucous membrane. And mucous membranes are going to be moist. They have mucus on them, but they're going to also be exposed to the outside world. So all the openings of our body are going to be our mucous membrane. So the one in particular that's talked about here is a mucociliary escalator, which means that there's mucus present, there's cilia present, and then an escalator is an upward motion of the mucus. So this is present in the nasal cavity, it's present in our throat, it's present in our trachea, and it's also present in the larger bronchi of our lungs. And how this works is that you can see the cilia here, and you can see that there's some cells that are not ciliated and some cells that are. But basically, when the microbes come into our respiratory tract, right, we breathe in the air, then the microbes will get stuck in the mucus produced from the air. The mucus is produced from the epithelium of your respiratory tract. And then once that trapped microbe is in the mucus, the cilia will constantly move that mucus away from your lungs up towards your throat, basically. So let's take a look at this again. So notice that, the mucociliary escalator, what it does is it takes microbes that are down here, moves it up into the back of your throat. The nose will move it down, right? So basically we're moving everything to the back of the throat. That way when you swallow, the mucus that has very slowly crawled up here, the mucus that is coming down here will go into your esophagus to your stomach for destruction. So it's a nice way of, mechanically removing debris, and it can trap anything, right? It can trap dust, particulates, pollen, whatever it is that's trapped as you breathe it in can be moved up to your throat to be removed. So that's the mucociliary escalator. And then again, the cilia. And then we have the flushing action of urine and tears is also an innate defense. Just the idea of constantly washing over your eye will allow the bacteria or anything to get washed away. Same thing with the urine. So the constant movement of urine through the ureter, through the bladder, through the urethra is going to remove bacteria that might take up residence. And another important thing about tears is the enzyme lysozyme. So we saw this before in the skin, when we talked about skin, the dermis. Lysozyme is an enzyme, and it specifically breaks down peptidoglycan. And there's a slide on that, so I'll show you that. But this is an enzyme, and so it's really heavily concentrated in tears, and it's also really heavily concentrated in saliva, but it's also like everywhere. So the lysozyme is present in all of our secretions, but very concentrated in tears and saliva. All right, again, our microbiome is going to help us protect the surface of our skin, our mucous membranes from invaders, because again, we're going to have competition with other pathogens for cellular binding sites and also for nutrients. And also, as in the skin, our microbiome can set up an environment that's hostile to invaders. This is also true with, I didn't talk about the genitourinary tract. The vagina is acidic, but the acid doesn't come from like an endogenous source. Our vaginas don't make acid, but the bacteria inside do. And so the bacteria do set up that acidic pH, and which is a hostile environment for invading bacteria. So to wrap up, these are just chemical defenses. So our skin, we have sebum, oleic acid, digestive tract, saliva, stomach acid, bile, peristalsis. That is the movement of the smooth muscle in our intestines, and it moves basically our feces out. But with that movement, we can also move out microbes. Cerumen in the ear, this is another word for earwax. And it is also a sticky substance that can trap microbes, and so it doesn't enter further into your ear. urine, the flushing action, and also the low pH. And then what I talked about here, the vaginal secretions, is actually lactic acid set up by lactobacillus antimicrobial agent. And then here is our image of our lysozyme, which is our enzyme here. This is going to be our plasma membrane of the bacteria. Here is the peptidoglycan of the bacteria. We have our NAG/NAM subunits, and you can see how the lysozyme is just breaking the NAG/NAM subunits. So it's really good at breaking down the cell wall. And when the cell wall is broken down, the bacteria will lyse.